All right, greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the December 2016 Elder Meeting. Thank you all for joining us. The meeting today is brought to you by the letter Q. So we have quite a few topics to go over. Thanks for everybody for posting stuff, and as players came up with questions. One of the things that we are noticing is a lot of good questions coming from our player base. Some of them are duplicates from some of the questions in the past, but that's okay. It's a good refresher, and because you can't see the archived rulebook versions in previous years beyond the last year, players wouldn't know that those questions were asked. So when we do rulebook revisions from here on out, we're going to try to leave the questions because we're not doing big revisions. And even if whatever revisions we do, we're going to try to keep those posts in there so the Q&A stay there. All right. So your beginning XP has been awarded to you. Make sure you got it. If not, post in the chat, and we'll adjust. You'll get XP at the end as well. So we have the topics. Let's start with the community topics. I kind of posted some in some areas and some in the other. Apologize for that. Let me put the first topics. Oh no, the first topics were in there. Okay, we're good. Waylay, jump into that first link for. There wasn't a time for Waylay, and initial knee-jerk reaction was, do we really need a time limit? And Pat pointed that out, and he had some really fantastic wording for kind of a medium, what do you call it? A middle ground, based on what type of, how the hit was made and what you're getting hit with. What we were trying to avoid was spamming of the Waylay ability, but also not allowing, like, hey, this LARP toothpick can knock you out. Ding! So the Pat came up with, when hit, the target becomes unconscious for a minimum of 1 minute to a maximum of 5 minutes. Another player actively attempted to wake them for a few minutes or until engaged. There's something better in there. I think there was another one in there, wasn't there? Or is that the... Going through. Yeah, you just edited your first comment, I think, right? Yeah, where did you end up posting that? He said the target is unconscious for an appropriate time depending on the assailant's weapon used. I don't see where you posted that in that thread.
Run that by me again. What was...
So he in the knockout Waylay, there's no time limit, and it was supposed to be based on the role play, but there's no the way we had it in 2014 was the person remained knocked out for up to 5 minutes. And in 2015, when we got rid of the plus armor and all that stuff, we took that wording out as it was. I vaguely remember something about the role play and type of weapon being used to knock out, because we were seeing people using little knives to backhand the the characters, and a little knife like that wouldn't deal that kind of knockout blow in some situations. You know, somebody's going to use a cordless wand, or you know, there's some crap like that that was being reported. But to have some kind of time limit or something that explains that it's that you should be knocked out an appropriate amount of time depending on the weapon that's whatever's knocking you out. It doesn't have to be a weapon, I guess.
I've got to say, that's going to cause a whole mess of confusion if you try to determine how long someone's knocked out by what they were knocked out by. It's going to create a huge mess as people stop roleplay to try and figure out what they were knocked out by. And then they're going to argue about this weapon being more effective than that weapon. It's going to be a mess.
Raylick does a head roll. I'm not sure what that means. Yes. Okay.
In combat, in SCA combat, they were out long enough to fall down, hit the ground, and then less than a minute later, they were finishing their sentence. So really trying to base it off of the weapon used is going to create a lot of headaches.
Yeah, either a weapon is capable of knocking you out and they should take the amount of time that is designated, or it's not. I think if you try to designate different types of weapons as different times that they can be knocked out, it's going to cause a huge mess, and it's just going to break immersion.
Can anybody rebuttal that? I don't think that's rebuttable.
I'm going to type in the chat because I lost my voice on Sunday. This is me pushing it to be heard right now.
Okay, we'll repeat it. One of us will. Pat's
You
like,
with your
soft,
voice and me
no
with my
potato.
face, we're having issues.
That's not mine.
What?
Scott's here.
Okay, I couldn't tell if I was or not.
Yeah, you're here.
For a minute, I could hear you and not see anything, and then I could see and not hear. And now I can do both. Yay.
So from, you know, Whaley is really a role play intense thing. With a time limit, it can be abused with a small item. Without a time limit, it can be abused, or you don't see what's happening. So there's pros and cons to each. I don't care either way. I just don't like being told, oh, you are knocked out for 5 minutes because I
What
hate
do we not care about? I missed the first part of that.
the first, I'll link it to you here in Facebook, Scott. The knockout waylay ability doesn't have a time limit like it did in 2014 where it was 5 minutes for everything. Because people were trying to knock you out with things that didn't have a pommel, didn't have, I mean, it was like literally taking a little knife, like literally a 2-inch long knife and saying, waylay.
Yeah, Ray tried to do that to people all the time at practice, and we kept telling him over and over again, dude, you can't waylay somebody with a cordless dagger at a run whispering. That doesn't work that way. So that was fun.
The issue that I have there is that because we're dealing with a system where we're dealing with representations of things, a cordless dagger represents an actual dagger, and in real life, I can use an actual dagger of that size to knock you out.
Hey, Randy.
not running by and not touching me with it, which is what they were doing. So,
well,
was
that's a
sort of-
different situation. But what that's a very specific situation. But what I'm saying is, since we're dealing with representations and not real items, a coreless dagger absolutely ought to be able to knock you out. Now, in that situation with them running by like that, I agree that's a situational thing that needs to be addressed. But that doesn't that doesn't in any way indicate to me that a coreless dagger shouldn't be able to be used.
But they're making daggers that are literally this big. Literally.
And I'm telling you, in real life, I could take something that big and I could knock you out with it.
how many people?
We're fragile creatures. We are fragile creatures. It doesn't take that much.
That brings me to my question. How many people have you knocked out for real?
Remind me to navigate with the
I'm going to
shiv.
plead the fifth.
Because I used to basically do it for a living, and it's not as easy as you think. So,
But could you do it with a little stint? I mean, could you do it with something?
with something the size of a penknife, not any easier than I can with my bare hand. And that hurts. Because skulls are harder than your fingers by a lot.
It hurts, yes.
You'll mostly break your hand.
Yeah.
Because one of my fingers don't straighten out anymore. I'm also having an argument on text right now at the same time, so sorry.
That's all right. I'm trying to present devil's advocate here because the argument needs to be made. However we end up resolving it. But when I talk about coreless daggers, I'm also not talking about something 2 inches. I'm talking about something that's probably 6 to 8 inches long.
I just posted the actual ability as it is in the rule book in the chat, so you don't have to dig it out. That's how we have it right now. I'm very, very positive we went over and over on this. But if we have to revisit it, so be it. I don't care.
How are we getting here's my question. If people were making 2-inch daggers, how are those getting passed as legal weapons?
All right, let's jump to throwing weapon. There's no minimum. There is for rocks.
Okay, so maybe that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Don't all
Doesn't-
other weapon types have a minimum?
Yes. Short weapon is the first. Dagger and knife do not.
Okay, so in order to be consistent with other weapons, perhaps those need a minimum.
Sure. If you
And it
wanna,
would seem like that would solve this problem.
well, then what do those other little weapons do? I don't have any with me, but I
You
do
can
have
still
them.
cut somebody with a small blade. I mean, you can cut, look, scalpels, X-Acto knives, shanks. They're not very big, and you can still open something up. But, I mean,
That's
it's got
true.
big, no mass. So it's still an effective weapon to cut someone with, just not necessarily to bludgeon them. That's not what it's made for.
This is not something, a scalpel is not something, though, that you're going to stab somebody once with and expect a lethal result.
No, probably not.
A weapon of warfare, such as like a dagger, you could potentially stab somebody in the chest, stab somebody in a major organ, and expect them to fall down, incapacitate, or die. And that's if you're going to try to kill somebody with a scalpel, that's a lengthy endeavor that you're probably going to have to go through, and is not really suitable for on a battlefield
Or with our wound system.
or with the wound system. Yeah.
I picked up all of the throwing weapons from the new Epic Armory thing to test out, and I can't put pictures in here, can I? I'm going to go to that Knockout Waylay thread. Oh wait, I should probably go to the Elder thing so others don't see it.
I don't know. To give an example, I just realized I've got one sitting here of a dagger that I would say can knock somebody out. I've got one. If that were a representation of a real dagger, I could knock somebody out with it.
Where was it? Did you just grab it? I didn't see. Yeah.
It is.
That also has a handle. It has a little bit of a
It's got a
pommel.
handle, and it's long enough. I mean, you can see this next to my hand. It's long enough that if this were a real dagger, I could knock somebody out with it. I haven't seen anybody making 2-inch weapons, so this is completely new to me, and I can see where that would be a problem.
Yeah,
But
I just
that I think
posted in the chat. These are push daggers and things of that nature, which it pretty much says clearly in that description of Waylay that these things cannot be used. Of course, it'd be a whole lot better if there was a video to go along with it.
yeah, if you look at the description, it pretty much says that you have to have a knife with a long enough handle and a pommel.
But it's not defined by, it's not black and white, it's left to interpretation.
Well, that's a lot of our rule book is that way.
I know.
It's something that you're working
Well,
on.
if you fully define it and then something doesn't fit, well, now something doesn't fit.
Yeah.
It also does say that you should consult your host if you're unsure if your object can be used. So perhaps if someone has the Waylay skill, when they sign in at the start of a game, you say you cannot use this weapon as a method of Waylay.
And we can back that up with videos and tutorials that we're making. So
Certainly whenever they are putting their weapons forward for weapons check, for the person who is doing weapons check saying, okay, you can use this as a scalpel, as a prop for surgeon abilities, but you can't waylay people with it.
Exactly. That way, at least there's some control over what can and can't be used.
And that's
So-
a fairly easy thing for the person doing weapons check to do, is just say, okay, you can have this small little weapon for whatever purpose it is that they brought it for, but you can't waylay with it.
So we're okay with the wording definitions. Hosts have the say. It's at the weapon check. The real question comes about was the time, the duration.
I mean, we've still been playing as if it was the 5 minutes or until somebody engages you.
We in
Pick up.
our branch, this has come up because a couple of players have recently acquired Waylay, and it's common for them to simply walk up to someone and just waylay them, and then there's obviously no duration on it at the moment. They just make up whatever time limit they think is fair and get up again.
That makes sense, because I don't think you guys were playing it back in 2014 when we had the 5-minute limit.
Well, what engaged? If you knock somebody out, engaged means attacked. What does engage mean when you try to move them? Like, I knocked you out to move you out of the tavern because you were drunk. and I finished off what the alcohol didn't do. I knocked you out.
I've seen both. I've seen either attacked, or I've also seen engaged, as in they went up and physically woke them and moved them, and
by means of arousal. Well, something that just says, okay, for what they're trying to do, they're trying to knock you out so they can move you or do something that is not going to hurt you, but to knock you out to do something. That should be different than, okay, now somebody is like taking that scalpel and stabbing you. Well, you're going to wake up. You're being hurt. How do you make the differentiation between those? And if you put the word arousal in, then somebody thinks, well, sexual.
I mean,
You could.
I
You could
understand
always-
why we took out the 5-minute, kind of. Like, I kind of understand why we took out that phrasing. Is there a reason why we couldn't use that phrasing if we are acknowledging that hosts have the ability to say that weapon can't waylay?
Yeah, we fixed the wording. It's easier to admin if there's a 5-minute rule or if there's some hard time limit. But the current wording also doesn't say how to be woken from a knockout. Does it? I don't think it explains anywhere except in waylay.
It doesn't explain anywhere how someone's actually woken up. But for the
Okay.
number of times that I've had to wake someone up from waylay, I've either thrown water on them or slapped them across the face in the instance of Pepper.
I had someone physically shake me to wake me up from a waylay.
I've been shaken and had water and slapped. Thanks, Slodo.
Process of falling to the ground can be enough to bring someone back from being knocked out. I have personally seen this in real life.
Okay, so what do we do? You want to just go back to 5 minutes? Just to make it easy?
I think that's probably one of the easiest solutions, and maybe say, put in wording there if you believe something along the lines of, if you believe it was hard enough to knock you out for longer than 5 minutes, you can role play it as such.
I posted a link in the chat that goes to Cracked. Granted, it's Cracked, but the first one that they're talking about is getting knocked out. Now, I didn't have a chance to back their sources, but they're pretty much going with, if you're knocked out 5 minutes, you've probably got traumatic brain injury going on.
Okay, minimum time to be knocked out is 5 minutes. You can be woken up by
Water to the face.
role play being watered to the face.
Or just any kind of realistic role play, because I think someone mentioned smelling salts. Stuff like that would wake you up. As long as it's not like, oh, you're awake now. If it's someone actively sitting there, like, trying to get you to wake up in a permission to touch acceptable way.
You can be woken up by realistic role play of trying to wake target.
Yeah. I think that's fairly clear.
What if you're not trying to wake the target? You're being very gentle to keep them knocked out.
Then they stay knocked out.
Do we have to mention that, or do we not have to mention that?
I don't think you have to mention that. I think most of us want to tell a good story, and if that's the story that they're going with, that they're trying to keep you knocked out, I think a lot of the good players will go ahead and go with it. I mean, I know I would. I've had people knock me out and try to move me, and I just kind of went with it.
So if we had to, I don't know, if we're really defining how to wake them and really defining the time limit,
Say 5 minutes or until a player reasonably role plays rousing the target.
huh? Try it again. I know it's hard to talk. Sorry.
I know it is. You could say 5 minutes or until another player role plays rousing the target or waking the target.
I mean, that's what we just said.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that works.
Okay. I still want to use the word arousal.
Who doesn't?
Don't do it. You
Come
know it's a
on.
bad idea. Don't
That could
do
never
it.
be a bad idea, book. It's not
Think
the
of
best
the
idea.
teenagers.
It's a bad idea.
The teenagers.
Come on.
Yeah,
We are a family-friendly game.
Tell me you
there's
wouldn't
quite a
be.
few 12s.
Tell me you wouldn't be absolutely hysterical by being knocked out, and then all of a sudden you hear boom, chicka, boom, chicka.
And that would be hysterical, and you know I'm all in favor of that kind of thing after the kids have gone to bed. But this is a family-friendly game. We've got to make sure that we don't do that while the kids are still up.
How's
Don't put something
arousal
like that in the rule book.
friendly?
What? No, we do not need an adults-only rule book.
Are you sure? Because I think it could work.
Revive, rekindle, rejuvenate, stimulate, evoke, conjure up. Like the word woke is in the sentence twice. I would like to use something different.
Roused.
Roused works.
Drop the A.
Yeah,
And-
rouse works.
Roused works. Roused is different from aroused.
You can be woken by realistic role play of trying to rouse.
Aroused target 20k XP.
Use my trap card. Arouse target.
So the wording that we're adding.
Okay, so those of you who are arguing for a shorter time, I understand where you're coming from, but that isn't going to stop the repeated, it's going to make the repeated waylaying worse, probably.
Which is why I think 5 minutes, unless
Then
somebody
call them on it.
is rousing you from your stupor.
So that last one I appointed, that's good. Okay. All right, change log, rulebook change log, change log. Next subject, somebody wants to look it up while I post this.
The fighting with a long weapon using one hand.
Belmonts and friends.
Okay.
Down to the council. How dare you, Pathos?
Counts is pretty lame. Who'd be on the council? Sounds like something you'd want to leave.
Next time you get waylaid and dragged through the mud back to your temple, I'm just going to let him do it.
You let him do it last time!
Hey, but I woke you up and then defended you about it.
You know, I am so looking forward to a couple years from now when I come down there and have a lot of fun.
Innocently becoming my beautiful friend, right? You just want to be friends with Peppa, right?
Yes, I'm sure
It's
that's
adorable.
exactly what you should do.
I'm gonna come down and you guys can learn all about how awesome Book is.
Yes, Sam's told us everything.
Sam doesn't know everything.
Oh, good.
All right, so holding two-handed weapons and still using them with one hand. I thought somewhere in this thing rulebook that we mentioned, or somewhere, maybe it was just in a video, I'm not sure, that long pole arms and such, obviously you got to have two hands on a two-handed weapon to be able to use things like cleave. But it doesn't anywhere, does it? I don't think it says you can't use a two-handed weapon with one hand.
If I remember, I'm sorry. I thought we didn't specify two hands. It had to be 2 points of contact. So things like holding a spear as you would a lance would also constitute 2 points of contact because you'd be holding it with the hand and with the under of the arm, which would grant you a lot more stability.
Right, but I'm trying to figure out where in the rule book. I think it's under safety rules or scoring and hits. Where's the 2 points of contact? I couldn't find the wording.
I don't honestly remember reading that.
Yeah,
Oh, my goodness. No.
I didn't see it in safety rules. Looking in scoring and hits.
I do recall in previous editions we used to have the barbarian had the hand and a half and two-handed, and the orcs could have two-handeds. It was written there that, you know, for those people they have to be trained to use them properly, or, you know, have the elders say that they're okay to use that. I don't recall ever having this whole 2 points of contact in any of the rule books at all previously. It was just, you know, if you're going to use these abilities, if you've taken them, you need to, you know, demonstrate that you can actually do it.
Is it unrealistic?
I remember this being being part of a meeting and a forum discussion, and the possibility that it make it into the. So, but I remember us testing it.
Was that all garbled for you guys? Okay. I think what he said was, we remember talking about it. It was a forum discussion.
What he said was that he remembered talking about it in a meeting and a forum discussion, but it may not have made its way into the rule book.
Now, 2 points of contact. Let's say if you have a two-handed weapon, let's say a sword that by definition and lengthwise is a two-handed weapon, like some of the Calamassals and Epic Armory weapons that are hand and a half weapons. They're just lengthwise two-handed weapons. With 2 points of contact, qualify for a polearm enlarger, or would it be it was like the Edgar series is totally manageable with one hand, but technically I think it's a two-handed weapon. Yeah, which one?
I think we have one that qualifies as a bastard length weapon. Because I think Mordecai has one of those, and I think it's lengthwise a bastard length.
So with what Lewis is holding up right there, is that that's a two-handed weapon, but you can easily wield it in one hand. That's the Game of Thrones one?
It's Undural from
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings.
right. So you can still use that with one hand, right? I mean,
I have, yes.
yeah. But from a rule aspect, we're okay with that, right?
I honestly have never can recall reading something that says I need to have 2 points of contact on it. No.
No, that's what I'm saying. For a sword, if you have it in one hand, but it's a two-handed sword, I mean, it just doesn't cleave. Okay.
Yeah. You can't use those abilities that specifically say that they're a two-handed ability.
Right.
But for things like pole arms and things that are beyond that,
Something that you physically would need two hands to manage.
right, like a pole arm, you should have 2 points of contact either with one hand or one-handed hip or one-handed shield or some way to manage it with 2 points.
I mean, I think there's a big difference between swords and polearms here. With swords, I think we're just looking for, can the person do it safely and fight adequately and safely with it. With a polearm, that's a different story. But I think as long as they're having at some point 2 points of contact with it, either a hand and an armpit or a hand and a hip or something like that, or two hands, I think that works. But yeah, you definitely need to have two hands if you're going to use one of the abilities that says you have to have two hands.
Okay. So using two-handed swords with one hand. You can use a two-handed sword with one hand as long as you can safely demonstrate control. While in one hand, you cannot cleave.
I like it.
Use of pole arm with one hand. The pole arm must have 2 points of contact whenever it is being used.
That's going to be large and small pole arm, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's just pole arm.
Pick.
All right, I'll put it in parentheses, large and small, so well, technically, you can't get in there. Must have 2 points of contact whenever it's being used. Do we have to define used? Should I say used for attacking? Or should I just say being used? Because like if you're walking with it on your foot.
I feel like it's pretty obvious that it would be for fighting. Like if you're just walking down the street with one hand and someone calls you out on it, it's like, well, what do you want? I'll use two hands and kill you right now. Like
You probably should clarify it, or somebody's gonna go, but I didn't have it in my hand to fight. Or something.
Oh, that guy. One in every.
We've got a couple, and they always argue with each other, so it kind of cancels itself out. But then we kill them, so it's fun.
Yes, kill them all.
That's why I have a Doug.
Perhaps just word it like, whilst in combat, a polearm must have two hands, must remain in two hands or something like that.
That's an easy fix. I like where you're coming from there.
Or 2 points of contact, I think, is what we were talking about. Because you can use a polearm without two hands.
2 points of
But
contact.
you need to have 2 points of contact.
Yeah. Well, being used in combat, a polearm, large and small, must have 2 points of contact.
Because otherwise, you've got people who are super literal that are going to go all rules lawyery on you.
Yeah.
Like
the next thing we'll get is, I had 2 points of contact, one to my wrist and one to my hand.
And that's when you say, I'm sorry, you're now dead.
What did you need? Well, let it turn off. Yes, it is.
You see him scolding children.
All the time.
That's why I had to disappear for a few minutes a minute ago. I had to go tell my kids to go to bed.
Only the king can do it
Time is
publicly.
Wait, now
Go
wait.
to bed, but it's only 1 in the afternoon.
Hi.
Except it's almost 8 o'clock here, Pepper.
Oh my god.
Okay, go play.
That's only counts with horseshoes and hand grenades.
This time difference thing is insane.
And nuclear warfare.
User must demonstrate full. The user must safely demonstrate control, same as the other one.
Tim, you're actually changing the wording of some of the skills there, or is what?
Okay, so I don't know if it's going to post well in here, but I'll try it. Please check my spelling and grammar and such and such. Change it, copy and paste it, change it, so I can post it. I was going to put it in the scoring and hits chapter 6. I could also put it in the weapon section because it makes sense to be there.
All right, because I was going to segue into one of the things I wanted to bring up about the small polearm skill, the prerequisites. I'll just jump straight into it. It does list the prerequisite for the small polearm to be one-handed and or long one-handed. Yet long one-handed requires one-handed anyway, so like you really need to have long one-handed there.
Well, either that or you don't, because if it's just one-handed, if it's and/or, then you could just do one-handed, and that doesn't make sense either.
Yeah, exactly right. It says to buy the skill, you must have one-handed or long one-handed.
Are those sentences okay, teachers?
Hold on just a second. Let me look.
Where are they being posted? I can't see them, sorry.
They're in the Zoom chat. It's hard to see. You want me to post it in that event thing? That's easier to see.
I can't see that, and I'm on my phone.
Oh,
I'm looking at the chat, but I don't see anything.
Yeah, I was looking in the chat as well, and I didn't see it.
really? The Zoom group chat?
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Oh, it's private. Why did apparently I sent it to Raylick. Sorry about that.
Well done.
There you go.
So fix it and then repost it. And that's okay if it goes in chapter 6, scoring and hits, and both, and then in the weapon section? Or I guess it would be weapon section. Should it go in combat specialization too? Probably all 3 sections.
I'd put it in, safety probably.
So
I think that sounds good. Wording sounds good. I don't see any big spelling or grammatical errors with that.
okay. Past the teachers, we're good. Well, where should we put it now? Safety rules, chapter 5.
Yeah.
Like right under where medium contact or physical touch looting.
I would
Weapons.
probably put it there. I would also put it in the description of those 2 weapons.
Okay.
Like under the description for two-handed weapon and the description for polearm, I would put it there.
Makes sense to me. All right, it's posted in chapter 5 and weapon definitions. Okay.
How do I change my name?
Right click in the list of participants.
If you just right click on your little picture. Lewis, do you have the day off work?
I do.
What are you doing later?
Nothing yet.
Want to go on a date?
Squirrel! I guess
Score!
so.
Whoa, leave me hanging, man. Not even a yes or a no. The tension, it's too
Yes.
high.
Run, Lewis, run!
Run, Lewis.
Pat, you asshole.
Lewis, language.
Oh yeah. Wait, does that mean I'm the first person to swear?
You are.
Lewis broke the swearing thing. Swear jar.
Swear jar.
Swear jar.
Dang.
It's usually me that messes up.
No, I've done it too.
I got been to like 4 elder meetings and I broke 3 of them. 3 of them.
It's always the Australians. Come
Next topic. Some of us have to work in the morning.
on. We're just waiting for somebody to bring it back up.
Next
Okay.
topic.
Nick, go ahead and keep going there.
Yeah, as I've posted a little higher in the chat there, it does state that small polearm must have long one-handed weapon or one-handed weapon skill first. It makes long one-handed weapon being redundant because you need one-handed weapon to buy long one-handed weapon anyway.
Suggestions of how to change it?
Just remove the requirements of must have long one-handed weapon. Just have one-handed weapon.
Is that in combat specialization? Where is that?
That's in combat specialization, yes. Small polearm.
For some reason, I was thinking at one point that you didn't have to have small one-handed to get one-handed. And that might be where that's coming from.
That is a possibility.
Somebody should probably check the rulebook now and make sure whether or not that's a requirement for long one-handed right now.
It is. I'm looking at it right now. Still is now. Must have
Okay,
one-handed
so it
weapon.
is. All right, so that at that point it is redundant.
Must have one-handed weapon. So you could skip long one-handed weapon. You could have just a one-handed weapon if you're a maid and you just want your small polearm. That's all. I think that's why that one-handed weapon was in there. Because you can literally just have one-handed weapon and then put in small polearm.
Right, so we don't need something in there that says long one-handed.
So just take out long one-handed weapon or.
Right.
Perfect.
All right. What's the strike through cheat code, or what control what for strike through?
Strike through. I'm not actually sure.
What the heck is that? Which one is strike through? It's not in our little tabs up here. But I know it works. Control Shift F or Control 1. No. Is that right? Control D. I'm going to try Control D, see what happens. Nope, that's not right. I just had a bookmark. Why did it do that? Control Shift F. Anyway, while I'm figuring this out, go to the next topic.
What is the next topic?
The next topic, I was just reading that. It is restructuring rulebook abilities to be more clear. Oh wait, no, I've missed one.
Yeah, you skipped one.
Defensive siege weapons. Oops.
Yeah, we had that posted in the elder section. We had
the pavises and stuff. That's going to be fun.
it was all written up. We just had to approve it. It was in the elder group forums. Do you want me to post the link?
Just do it. We'll like it.
Defensive siege weapon. That was the big movable shield wall that we were discussing last time, wasn't it?
Yeah, because there was no counter to the siege weapon. So we needed a defensive siege weapon. And this elder crap is still all screwed up. It's, every time something gets screwed up in these things, all I hear is Pat in the background. Why couldn't we just use WordPress?
Don't worry, Pat criticizes my entire life too.
I mean, he makes a valid point, but
He usually does.
still, what the hell was that? Oh, it's Elder Talk. Okay. Posting it.
Oh dear. Books going walkabouts.
Matt Lit, I think is what
Book needs more meds. That's what that is.
So if you don't want to read through that, I'll just post what the proposal is, which is that. I posted it in the chat for you. This we had gone over with a few of the elders. It's not too big, it's not too small.
Murder Murdoch. Why?
We okay with that?
It's just a question of, do we need only one person to move it, or do we need 2 or 3 like with a siege weapon?
I was trying to keep the siege weapons consistent.
Mm. I mean, probably, as Murdoch mentioned in the post, it probably will depend on the size of the pamphlet itself. That would determine how many people, possibly.
Let's think about the rule lawyers. They're pounding away siege weapons and they're throwing rocks out of their siege weapons and it's killing everybody. And then one person with this mantlet comes in and he's rolling it by himself and they're like, hey, you can't do that.
You need a minimum of 2 people.
Yeah, I'd say 2.
Oh boy, here we're going to have a yeah but in siege weapons. Okay. So requires 2 people to move. Characters to move? No, people.
Characters are people too.
Yeah, but they're also storyline characters and birds and everything else if we come up with lore stuff. So I think just putting people eliminates the confusion if that ever becomes a thing. So I added at the end, requires 2 people to move the manlet. Good? It's not a separate ability. If you have siege weapons, you automatically can do this. Just like all siege weapons. Okay? Nod your heads if you agree. Any opposed? Raise your hands. All right. Can I say motion passed? It's not a motion, but it sounds official. Next topic, please. Thank you all for going fast on this. Oh, structure rulebook ability for more clarity. Yeah, that one's going to take a while. If you have a better way, by all means, take the hours and hours to restructure it.
And send it back.
Yeah, we'll just copy and paste it. It's cool.
Sure. Does someone have a proposed change? Actually, I think Pat, you had a model that you liked or that you submitted.
The flow is choppy because the rulebook's been edited and ripped apart and pieces put in other places. It doesn't flow nice anymore. Actually, I don't think it ever did. It'd be really swell if it flowed. The ideas, think of it in a building block process. Like, new guy off the street comes in and wants to LARP. Okay, how do they systematically learn things?
Oh God, I've opened the same page like 20 times.
Oops. So who's taking that? Who's taking over that project?
I'm happy to book. She got volunteered by Pat.
Okay.
Voluntold.
Lewis, in the elder section, you
No.
What?
What happened?
Book says no. I'm not getting voluntold for that. I'm already working on post-apoc.
Did you say voluntold? Because I love that.
Yes, I did say voluntold, and I will not be voluntold to restructure this rulebook.
Birna?
I'm happy to
I can
start
work on it. It will not be fast process, but I can work on it.
I volunteer Serena.
What?
Well, here's an idea, folks, guys and gals, children of all ages. Let's go with, I just talked down to you. That's not right. The forums of the elder-only community, you can make a new category. So in the Myths and Legends Elder Talk, oh wait, no, I can't make subcategories. No. Let's just make a new category called Myths and Legends 2017. Yeah.
No.
We could always
no.
make like a Word document or a Google Doc and share it with the elder group.
That becomes very, very long. If you post it by chapter, we kind of break it into smaller pieces.
Here's a thought.
Yeah, we could do
right now, we are working on building post-apoc from the ground up. What if we see what we end up coming up with that as far as structure, and then see if we can adapt what works from that and go back to try and fix myths. That's just a thought, but since I'm building that from the ground up and trying to make it work and trying not to bring over the stuff from myths that already drive us crazy.
Oh boy, it's gonna be a different rule book completely.
Yeah, probably.
Because it is a new project, we can actually experiment with stuff without, annoying all the people in myths and just, does this format work? No, this sucks. Does this format work? No, this sucks. And we can just keep trying because it's not a functioning system yet. So, yeah.
Pathos posted a pretty good layout in the in a forum somewhere. I have it up somewhere. I'll just repost the link.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh, whoa. I posted it like 15 times.
Oh man. I can no longer comprehend what's happening.
We're shooting out ideas. That's all that's happening.
There's going to be a shit ton of backlash when we start copying and pasting and making stuff again. Might just
We
change.
haven't decided on anything.
I'll change my phone number and email, and we'll be off site when that happens. Our tenant goes away for a while. Send everything to Pat. I'll forward everything to Pat. Feel the butt hurt. It's bad. I don't know. Just come up with post-apocalyptic, and then we'll see what kind of a storm gets brewed.
That's kind of what I'm thinking
Right.
about right now. Is
And if somebody else has something, just post it in that news section and just take it chapter by chapter and
see what people think of it, and if it works, then it might help us fix some things. And if it doesn't work and people hate it, then I'll go, all right, well, let's fix it then.
all right. Next topic was ultralight armor, I think.
Did we have a topic on ultralight armor?
Yeah, Wolfric posted it November 29th. I'm just
okay, it's further down.
I thought he was just clear over what his unclear on what his armor counted as. Or maybe I'm thinking of a different thread.
That may have been Gallendorf's thread about what his armor was.
Nick, it's all you, buddy. What were you talking about? I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it myself.
I've been up since 4:30. I don't know.
That's my regular start time.
Yeah.
I think it was just basically a discussion about whether ultralight armor by itself should allow a 1 point of armor for like new people specifically, because to only allow it to give a bonus point of armor for when you're wearing heavy armor as well, it's kind of a useless skill at level 0 until you're level 100,000 experience.
Or you've got the actual cash to spend on getting that armor.
I personally didn't like the idea of ultralight armor because, let's face it, some thick material isn't really going to stop blade from crushing your arm.
You say that? Yeah, the blades, no. But historically, arrows, spears, it actually was used, especially in the eastern countries, like Asia and Middle East. Arrows would actually get caught by the silk or cloth material and actually would pull into the wound and actually clot it up and stop bleeding.
I can understand for an arrow or something, but for a broadsword that you smack someone across the arm with or across the chest with, it's not going to protect you for 1 point.
Fabric-based armors go back to the Hellenistic period when they were making laminate fabric called linothorax. And then you've got various types of linen-based armors that are everything from something made to be worn under mail to armor that's pretty much like a single-use piece, almost like we use Kevlar now, that you get in the 12th, 11th centuries that's capable of stopping a pretty good lick. You might still get an arm broken, but the arm doesn't come off, and that's preferable. So you usually see it on some of your lower-end guys, but it's anything to make somebody more combat effective and keep them in the fight longer. It's just another level of force multiplication. It's not the best stuff, but it's better than your skin. So,
in addition to that, there's also things that came in the later periods, like buff coats, akatons, and if you couldn't afford anything like plate mail, what you do is you strap what's called jack chains to your gambeson, and it provided enough protection for people to consistently buy those things. It was the most common form of armor.
Jack chains were basically like pre-splinting your arm inside the coat, so that if it did get hit, it didn't break. And if it did, you still had the big metal piece on there, so you were still at least effective enough to either get out of the line or get out of the fight. And it worked great. That's a great example. And we still do it now. I mean, that's what all of our armored fiber armor is. All the stuff they make for motorcycle jackets, it's the Kevlar reinforced clothing. That's basically what it is fabric-based armor. It's just it's modern materials instead of heavyweight linens and things treated with wax and laminating wool and leather and linen and changing the warp and weft. But fabric armor's been around since we were making fabric. So
the reason we added it to the rule book was to try to get people to wear heavy enough clothing underneath their metal armor to prevent injury to themselves. A lot of folks, when they buy their cheap Indian armor from Epic Armory or whatever, they don't get the gambeson, and then they realize, oh crap, I'm getting all bruised up and I can't figure out what was, that was the reason to put it in, was a safety protocol. Should it count by itself? Whatever.
Maybe have it
as a moot point. I don't, whatever.
Maybe just have it as something that must be worn under plate armor.
But
if it was only added for a safety thing to the player themselves.
To prevent picketing and rioting, taking out a skill right now would be ill-advised. I would rather change it, if it needs to grant 1 point of armor, regardless of if it's worn underneath something, if that makes everybody happy, fine, whatever. It's a point of armor. I know I don't care. I know the clothies would really like it. Oh, I got 1 point of armor everywhere. Well, if you're wearing a gambeson, great, because that makes it look more period. Congratulations. There's your 1 point of armor. But if you're wearing a towel and trying to call it ultralight armor, that's what that wording is in there to prevent.
Yeah, if you're going to be wearing cloth armor, then it should be cloth armor. It shouldn't be, as you said, a towel. That would be ridiculous.
Something that actually armor.
I'm moving you.
So, yeah, like
It actually looks like armor.
I've seen some pretty fantastic U-Haul blankets that passed as ultralight armor. It was quilted and re-sewn, and it looked, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. But it didn't look like a U-Haul blanket. It was actually sewn up as a jacket.
Back when we used to actually do medieval reenacting, and that was exactly the thing. People would say, look, if you can't afford to get the proper materials for a gambeson, go get a quilted blanket and sew it up, and it works fantastically. It's effectively the same thing, really. You can just go to an op shop, pick up a blanket, hack it to bits, sew it back together. It looks awesome.
Well, you should have a felt line in the middle.
Either way, it works.
I actually have my old gambeson from like 12 years ago. It looks horrible now.
So just to move this along here, can we just allow it to count as 1 point of armor regardless? That pretty much shut everybody up, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think that fixes everything.
All right. Okay, we'll do that. Move along. Next subject. Oh, wait. We got to vote. Good? Yes? Birna? Okay. The camera comes back on to vote.
Sorry,
Okay.
my computer's starting to die. I have to save as much battery as I can.
Okay. Somebody look up the next topic and start talking.
Elemental power clarification, maybe?
You might have to explain.
It's a comment by you. It says adding elemental power clarification.
Oh, crap. Did I put a link?
That was the 2 mana ban thing.
Oh, right. So, yeah. That needs a little bit of touch-up. You get 2, you cast it. If you got 100,000, you're a magic caster, you can cast it, and it gives you 2 extra mana for 10 minutes. It doesn't say 10 minutes, I don't think. And it doesn't say whether those mana bands are usable right away.
This is going to be under what section of the rulebook? Specializations.
So when I posted on that post, I got out my jump to conclusions mat and started jumping. Hopefully I jumped to the right squares.
That's a terrible idea.
It just says the caster is constantly in touch with the elemental forces, filling them with its power. This allows the caster to carry an additional 2 mana bands. Caster should perform an incantation for approximately 20 seconds.
Yeah, the way I did that, because my necromancer has that, is at the start of the game, I would incantate for 20 seconds. I'd have 2 mana bands. I didn't know if I'd run
For the
out
rest
or
of the
whatever
day,
because there was no
kind of.
information on it. Yeah, until the end of the game. I just thought, because it says you're constantly in touch with nature, which is weird for an undead, yes, I know. I'd have that +2 permanently.
It does kind of read that way.
Yeah. So I think, to simplify it, it's much like the elves have the ability to take, extra mana bands for 1 skill. Maybe the same could be for this ability. You just take the skill, +2 mana bands, remove the incantation time.
It's just there.
It's just there.
I'd say if after they use those 2 additional mana bands, if they were to replenish a mana, they wouldn't get them back.
However, how do you know they've used those 2? Because
It says that you can carry 2 more.
Use it as a rule of thumb. So if they use any mana bands after they cast this spell, it uses the 2 created by elemental power first.
That's going to get to be a logistical nightmare trying to remember that.
yeah, I'd just say simplify it, +2 mana bands, don't worry about the cast time. I think that's what a lot of people have been running anyway.
I think that makes it simple. Let's keep it simple.
Yeah, it says that allows you to carry 2 more mana bands, so it sounds to me like you just get to, if you have 9 mana bands, you get 11 mana bands by having the skill.
Anybody want to rewrite that? Post it so we can vote on it?
So he's saying if you have this elemental power, you permanently have an additional 2 mana bands?
Yeah,
Yes.
just like with the elfin ability.
No worries. No, I just wanted to clarify that. So all you have to do is remove the casting time. So you just remove the last sentence, and it's essentially means exactly what we said.
Agreed. Very much agreed.
I think
You
that
just read
works.
it as the caster is constantly in touch with the elemental forces, filling them with its power. This allows the caster to carry an additional 2 mana bands.
That's perfect.
Okay, so that's on chapter 13.3.
13.3 elemental magic specialization.
Where is it? I can't find it. Why am I not finding it? Mana pull, mad dance, music strike, spell block. Am I in the wrong place?
Is it under elemental?
Yeah, it's under elemental, and it's about It's under elemental magic specialization skills.
Oh,
Yeah, if you're looking at Mana Pull and Mad Dance, you're under General Magic, so you need to be under Elemental.
13.4. Oh, there's a oops.
There's a typo there. 13.3 elemental magic specialization.
Good catch. Thread.
I did post a link in the chat.
Which also links it as 13-3, which is wrong.
Okay, I changed it to 13.4 to match the title. Guess that's one way to catch a mistake, huh? So just take out caster should perform incantation for 20 seconds.
I think so. And then that
Yep.
just states that they get an additional 2 mana bands.
I think that works.
If they have that skill in their slot. Okay. Do we have to put any additional wording in it?
I don't think so. I think that's very clear. It's cut and
Yeah.
dry. If you put anything else in there, then there's going to be more to interpret. Right now, it's very clear.
Okay, fixed.
Enough with the Facebook message.
What's the next one?
It's got. No, I think we've reached the end. Maybe.
Shut up. You're kidding.
Yay!
Added siege weapon not telling you what to do or not clear. Again, posted by you.
Added siege weapon, not telling you what. Oh, yeah. That you die with the siege weapon. So jumping over to the siege weapon area. Again, combat specialization at the end of chapter 13-2. At the bottom where it says siege weapon-ish stuff. Does it say? It doesn't say that. Not in 13.2. What am I talking? Oh, yeah, it does. Siege weapon operation. It doesn't actually say, does it? It doesn't say what happens when you get hit by a siege weapon, that you die instantly. Doesn't say that. I think it says it in the weapon definitions, but not in the actual combat specialization. I thought I just read that. Pulling up weapon definitions, siege weapons. Oh, siege weapons can only be operated during the day hours, unless otherwise approved by the host. Didn't know. Didn't remember that.
Yeah, I could see that being an issue unless the host is aware of what's going on.
Night sieges. Oh.
Well, it's because a lot of these are rope operated, or the tension is in a rope. We don't want somebody not being able to see what's happening.
Use glow in the dark rope.
A melee weapon, siege weapon, will kill any person or destroy any object that strikes regardless of armor. It does say it in there, in the weapon definition. So I'm just going to re-quote that in the combat siege weapon thing, right? So under the definition of siege weapon, I'm going to put melee siege weapon. Okay, simple fix. I didn't change anything. I just put the additional wording in there so it's easier to find. All right, anything else?
Pat brought up in the chat that herbalists have no defined tools for their profession.
Yeah, I remember that post. So jumping over to the herbalist profession.
Copy and paste to alchemist. Just be done with it.
Yeah, seriously, a lot of the herbalists I know use the same tools that we use for alchemist or apothecary. They use a mortar and pestle, and that seems to work just fine.
It goes without saying that they're quite similar.
So props to you, shop fire, water bottles, brew stand, tools, dust potions, and more.
Yeah, copy paste.
I mean, you don't have to use all of them, just a general selection of them, and it makes
Right,
sense.
those are examples, not a definitive list.
It's just we never pasted it in there. That's all. And so I changed it to herbalist, requires herbalist materials to make the below items. That's pretty much copy and paste. Should be good enough, maybe. All right. I've changed it if you want to review it, but it's copy and paste. All right. Is that everything?
Something that did get brought up in our local elder chat last night, or late last night actually, was similar to the disciplinary policy that I created a little while back. Maybe creating something about what a player should do if someone makes them feel uncomfortable during a game. Just recently, we've been put in a bit of a difficult position with one of our players, and we thought it probably worth bringing up.
I think that's as simple as just that player needs to go talk to the host. The host needs to go talk to the offending player.
That also goes with chapter 5, where it talks about sportsmanlike conduct. So it is in there, if you want to review that. If it needs to be changed, it might be the introduction, actually. That might be in the first.
Attitude, elders can eject players for poor attitude or unsportsmanlike behaviour.
Yeah.
That's deliberately vague.
Would that satisfy your current situation as grounds for disciplinary action or removal?
Nick, how do you feel on this one? I mean, we could bring up the situation at this point.
That probably
Do you want to bring it up while it's being recorded, though?
All right, I'll stop the recording.